All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our very first after school special, a series of webinars with a focus on school safety topics, and in partnership with subject matter experts from the field. My name is Karina McIntyre. I'm from the Regional School Safety Center. Today's webinar is going to be packed with some really good information. We are recording the session so that others can watch it later. If you have questions throughout the webinar, you're welcome to post those in the chat. If we're not able to get to all of the questions, we'll address anything as part of a follow-up email. With me today, I'm really excited to introduce Sergeant Rick Lagerquist from Vancouver Police Department. Sergeant Lagerquist has been an incredible partner at the table in our region, helping us plan school safety exercises. He's presented at our school safety summits and lends his expertise in special law enforcement training. So welcome, Sergeant Lagerquist. Great to have you today. I also just want to mention, I know he has a not so little one, a 14-year-old at home, and he's very committed to keeping our students safe. So today's topic is CRASE, which is the civilian response to active shooter events. The content for today has been adapted from the Advancement Law Enforcement Rapid Response training materials developed by the Texas State University. In 2013, the FBI designated this training as meeting the national standard in active shooter response. This is a very high-level overview, however. We're taking about 4 hours worth of content and drilling it down to a 1-hour webinar to give you a flavor, with the idea that we can do some more in-depth follow-up training later on. A note about today. We will be talking plainly about active shooting events. However, we will not be showing any graphic violence. There will be some brief video clips taken from real situations. Please take care of your own needs, take any needed breaks, and certainly reach out to us if you have any questions. We're going to start off today with a 30-second video. And as you watch, I want you to ask yourself, what would you do? And we'll come back to that question at the end.
Principal Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Can we chat after school about the science fair?
Sure, no problem.
Great, thanks.
Have a great day.
Those are gunshots.
It's coming this way.
Come on.
If you were caught in an active shooter incident, what would you do? Know how to survive.
Today, you will be hearing about some active shooter situations and the crisis or disaster response, how to prepare for and respond to an active shooter or active attack. We will start off with looking at some data. We're going to brush over a few examples of school incidents. We're going to focus in on learning about the stress response system, our own stress response system, and also cover avoid, deny, and defend, our key strategies and key takeaways for today, as well as steps to take that can assist law enforcement and limit casualties. So we're starting off with data. We want to glean as many lessons learned to help prevent and stop any future attacks. The data analysis we're going to look at comes from a 2014 FBI report titled A Study of Active Shooter Incidents. However, the data in this data set represents events up until 2024. It's important to know what definition you're working with when you start talking about active shooter or active attack events. The federal definition that we're going to use today in this data set is that an active shooter event is one or more people actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined and populated area. There are some caveats to that definition. So this does not include gang-related violence. This does not include incidents that are a byproduct of another crime. It's useful, though, to think of this as attempted mass murders with a firearm. There's no requirement that a certain number of people be shot or killed. In fact, some of the events in this data set represent incidents where just a few people were shot or maybe no one was shot. This is an illustration of the number and location of attacks between 2000 and 2024. And note that the size of the dots indicate the number of victims. So the larger dots indicate the greater number of victims. Also note the color of the dots. Yellow dots indicate violence with a gun, red dots with a knife, and then the blue dots with a vehicle. Primarily, you will see yellow dots represented. The total active attacks included in this data set is 597. Here's just another look, bar graph at number of incidents, and this is incidents in general, not just school shooting. And you can see here there was a dramatic increase in 2021, and since then it has started to decline. This looks at number of attacks by location. We hear a lot of news reports of such incidents. It's important to remember that most incidents are occurring at places of business. About 13% of attacks occur at schools. This is another really interesting piece of data. This is looking at attacks by time of day and location. And so in general, massive attacks or shootings are happening in the afternoon. However, when you're looking at places at schools, the number of attacks primarily occur in the morning and before lunch. So keep that in mind as you're planning strategies. We're going to just breeze through a few examples and a couple of highlights. If you attended our safety summit this last August, you heard SRO Chris Sutherland share his experience from the Marysville Pilchuck school shooting in 2014. In this particular incident, it was a targeted attack. The perpetrator shot 4 friends and family members at lunch and then shot himself. The motivation appeared to be a grievance over a girlfriend. You may recall or may not, in our state in Lacey, Washington, there was an incident at North Thurston High School in 2015. This is interesting to me because while the perpetrator was a current student, a teacher actually tackled the perpetrator and prevented any injuries and fatalities at this incident. But there's been a documentary that they produced about the ongoing trauma that the school still experienced, even though nobody was injured or killed. Just the trauma of having a school shooting, it has lasting effects. And so we have to be thinking about recovery for these incidents as well. All of you are familiar with Robb Elementary in 2022, many lessons learned. We are going to take a deep dive into the Uvalde lessons learned at our next Safe Schools Task Force in January. So keep that in mind. But some of those lessons include the importance of utilizing incident command system in unified command. There were lessons around issues with locking doors, communication, recovery. In this situation, the perpetrator was also a former student. And then in 2023 in Nashville, Tennessee, the school shooting at Covenant Church and School, a former student shot through and shattered glass to gain entry. The smoke from the gun actually set off the fire alarm. So as students were evacuating, they were shot at. Some classrooms stopped evacuating and returned to the classroom when they realized it wasn't a fire drill, but an active shooter. Lesson learned there. If you are evacuating, keep evacuating. Others ran out into the woods. In this situation, in many situations, the secured rooms were shot at but not breached. And then, of course, there were a couple incidents earlier this school year at Annunciation Catholic Church in August. That incident was over in just 2 minutes. However, 2 people were killed, 30 were injured. The motive's still under investigation. And then again in September at Evergreen High School in Colorado, not our Evergreen. And in that particular situation, the perpetrator appears to have been radicalized by an extremist network. They injured 2 people and committed suicide. So just to look at some of the incidents that have happened across the board, however, there is no set profile. Perpetrators range in age. Most tend to be male, but there are some females. Most have been Caucasian, but not all. And so there's really not a profile to look at. However, when you look specifically at school shooting incidents, 82.5% of school attackers were current or former students. In 2021, the Secret Service published a report called Averting Targeted School Violence. They looked at 67 averted plots. They compared that with school incidents that had happened and found that students who plotted school attacks shared many similarities with students who perpetrated school attacks. And that includes having school discipline and contact with law enforcement, experience with bullying, mental health issues, intending to commit suicide, using drugs and alcohol, many of them impacted by adverse childhood experiences. So things like substance abuse in the home, parental incarceration, etc. The takeaway here is that prevention and early intervention are paramount. There's almost always intervention points available before a student's behavior escalates to violence. So this is an early plug for the importance of conducting threat assessments. We'll talk a little bit more later on about what schools can do. We're going to shift gears now, though, taking in lessons learned, looking at the data, but let's focus for a moment on our own internal stress response system, because that's an important part of how we respond in disaster and crisis events. If we can name it, we can tame it. So in 2008, Amanda Ripley wrote a book on the unthinkable, who survives when disaster strikes and why. And she looked at and examined survivors and people who didn't survive during disasters. And through this, she was able to identify 3 stages that people typically go through during a disaster event. The stage of denial, deliberation, and having a decisive moment before they're able to take action. What she found is that survivors go through those stages faster and take better actions at the decisive moment because they have prepared beforehand. And that's why we're here today. We're going to look at a video. Some of you may have seen this before. It's an excellent example of people going through the denial and deliberation process. It's also an example of a concept called social proof. What happens is people tend to look to others when trying to make sense of a situation. So if we see others reacting, we tend to react accordingly. As you watch this footage, it's an old video. The quality isn't great, but this is from the 2003 The Station nightclub incident. At a Great White concert, a pyrotechnic display that went horribly wrong. I want you to just pay attention to the behaviors of the people and how they are reacting to the situation. can see the fire starting to happen, but people still aren't responding. Some are starting to realize this doesn't seem right. Even the band members aren't really sure. Fire alarm goes off. People are kind of starting to realize what's happening, and then you'll start to hear the panic set in. In that incident, 100 people died and 230 people were injured, mostly due to panic and people panicking, trying to get out the door. But you could see it took some time for people to really understand and realize what was happening before they made that decision to evacuate, at which point they were starting to panic. So let's look at what happens physiologically speaking to our bodies when we are in a high stress disaster response survival mode moment. Typically, when we're just sitting as we are now, our heart rate's probably close to about 60 beats per minute. That's the average normal resting heart rate. But think of a situation, I don't know if any of you have seen the I Survived TV show, but that is a lot of people talk about kind of what they go through to survive really traumatic situations. But if you think about what you might do, as your heart rate starts to increase, once you get up to about 90 beats per minute, you start to lose your fine motor skills, which is basically using your hands. And so if you think about, as stress starts to kick in, a teacher's ability to fumble with a door lock can be compromised even at the beginning. You start raising your heartbeat up to 120 beats per minute, and your complex motor, your gross motor skills start to deteriorate. You become less coordinated. However, as your adrenaline kicks in, you reach peak physical performance. You're stronger, you're faster, you'll bleed less. Get a little higher at 150 beats per minute, and that's when you start to lose your ability to think clearly. Your cognitive processing deteriorates, you get tunnel vision, time becomes really warped. And once you reach to 175 beats per minute, this is system overload. This is where you might be in the freeze of fight, flight, or freeze, and where you will lose control of your bowels and bladder. And that's a very real experience as you're faced with something that's highly stressful. We're going to watch another short clip of an example of people in high stress situation, and just again, watch and observe for their behavior as they start to realize something is happening. There's no sound to this. I was just watching the video. You see the mom struggling with trying to get the toddler out of the stroller. People are panicking. They're running into each other, falling to the ground. Their stress level is very high, and so that's where they may not be making logical decisions at that point. They've lost their coordination and their critical thinking skills. So we saw examples of what can go wrong. What can we do about it? We're going to watch another short video. It's about 3 minutes. This talks about your stress response system and what's happening physiologically between our brain and the rest of our bodies when we're in that fight, flight, or freeze, or that stressful moment. Again, if we can name it, we can tame it. So I'm going to play this video, but you'll have to excuse, we'll probably have to watch
It's the biggest game of the year, and we're down to 30 minutes.
briefly. Okay, here we go. Here's the video.
While the brain is our most complex organ, its main objective is simple: to keep us alive and achieve our goals. It does this by helping us breathe, eat, walk, and talk, the basic essentials to our survival. It is geared to search for any dangers in our environment and primes us to respond quickly. What's more, our brain gives us the ability to plan ahead, solve problems, experience emotions, store memories, and communicate with others, all the things that make us human. Our brain is the control centre of our entire body, driving our every thought, feeling, and action. Just how do our brains do this? There are three main regions within the brain that serve a specific function as we interact with our environment. At the base of our brain is the primitive region, in the middle the feeling region, and at the front and top of our brain is the thinking region. While these three regions have their own special function, they operate as one connected network to keep us alive and reach our goals. The primitive region of our brain looks after those basic life functions that just happen automatically, like our breathing and heart rate. It also helps coordinate our basic physical movements, such as our balance and posture. More than this, it plays a key role in scanning our environment to search for those things that may threaten our chances of survival. This helps the instinctual part of our brain kick into action automatically. The middle feeling region of our brain plays a significant part in our emotional and social experiences through life. This is the part of our brain where emotions and impulses, such as anger, fear, and pleasure come from. It is activated when our primitive region detects a threat in the environment and triggers our fight or flight response. This region drives many of our behaviours and habits and helps us form memories and attach feelings to them, particularly when we experience strong feelings such as fear or happiness. Lastly, the thinking region is the largest and most highly developed part of the human brain. It stores our memories, allows us to plan, enables us to imagine or analyse a situation, find a solution, and communicate with others. It is the part of the brain where we can take control of decision-making and emotion and override our automatic responses from our primitive and feeling regions. Our thinking region gives us our likes, dislikes, hopes and ambitions, those things that make us uniquely human and different to all other animals on this planet. These three regions of the brain work together to coordinate our every thought, feeling, and action.
So that's a great illustration of the brain and how it processes when you are kicked into a stress response, fight, flight, or freeze. Your critical thinking skills can go out the window. So what do you do about that? You want to be able to access your critical thinking skills in order for you to make the best decision, your decisive moment of what to do. Breathing, creating a pause. Breathing is one of the most important things you can do to help kind of calm your nervous system down that allows your thinking brain to come back online. There are lots of different techniques and strategies for using your breath. I know many use what's called boxed breathing, where you breathe in, you hold, you breathe out, you hold. The research has shown, is that the key to your breath is to deepen the breath and to slow the breath down. And that's what allows your nervous system to send chemical messages to kind of help calm your response system down so that you're able to think more clearly. Once you use your breath, you create that pause, and then you can shift. You can shift your emotions from a place of fear to a place of anger, where you are more ready to jump into action. This is why having a script of what you would do, or having a plan for what you would do, and practicing that plan is so important. Because as you are conducting things like tabletop drills and you're talking about what you would do. And then you're conducting your lockdown drills. You're practicing what you would do. It gives the opportunity to develop that script and to practice it, which can create a habit to fall back on during a moment of high stress. That allows you to create that pause so that you can more quickly go into that decisive moment. Here's a quick example of someone that, or a group of people that had that decisive moment. In 2015, there were three Americans who were traveling to France and were able to thwart a terrorist attack on a high-speed train heading to Paris. Basically, these three friends disarmed and subdued the gunman, and it all started when one of them yelled, "Get him!" It was that his ability to create that pause, he went directly into a decisive moment. And so his three friends were also able to jump in and help. So being able to go through the process of denial and deliberation more quickly to get to that decisive moment, using your breath to create that pause allows you to then make a decision about how you're going to respond to a particular situation. And this is where Sergeant Lagerquist comes in, who will now talk about avoid, deny, and defend strategies and walk us through that response. So I'm going to pass it over and let you take control, and you can let me know when you're ready for me to forward the slides.
All right. Hello, everybody. Avoid, deny, defend is it used to be run, hide, fight. Avoid, deny, defend, I think captures, and through ALERRT captures better actions that are easier for people to think about and implement in their day-to-day life. So avoiding, big one for avoiding is some of the stuff we do through standard response method, standard response protocol, through the lockout, lockdown, shelter, evacuate. And a lot of that is staying away. Denying, again, going into the lockdown, lockout, the practice you do in your classrooms through training. And then defend is the last resort method. Defend is, you're in your classroom, positioning yourself in a classroom or a room. Where is the best place to defend against the attacker if they come in? And what are some things you can do or get everyone involved to do to better defend against yourselves? And that's a scary thing. And that's something we should think about. Like Karina has mentioned before, with the scripting in your mind, is getting your body ready, getting your mind ready to go through that act. If you want to skip ahead to the next slide. So on average, it'll take 5 minutes for police to respond to this. And, that could be 5 minutes is average. It could be a little bit longer. If I say lucky, if something like this happens, maybe an officer is driving down the street and notices it as it happens. But there's a chance people could be driving by a school, could be driving by as this is happening and not notice it due to how sound carries. So that's 5 minutes where it is on everyone inside that school to make it safe and make it protected for the students and faculty. So that's where, again, the training comes in with practicing your drills correctly. Your doors, are they easy to lock? Do you need a key? Have you practiced with that key multiple times? If you've taken the SRP or SRM class before, you might have seen they did some training. They did a video where they show teachers demonstrating in a non-stress environment how to go up to their classroom, use a key to lock the door. And even in that non-stress environment, the teacher misses the keyhole a couple times in that demonstration just from the stress of having to perform on camera. So imagining that if you have to do it because there's a threat outside, the stress is going to be a lot higher. So avoiding for those 5 minutes is going to help with our police response to get there and protect lives, and it's going to help uh, with that after trauma as well. So in those 5 minutes, avoiding, so getting everyone inside the classroom, locking your doors, shutting windows, getting into your safe corner or safe area that's designated into your classroom to limit target availability. That's going to be huge. And Karina, if there's anything you want to add on to as I'm speaking, please go ahead and chime in. And you want to go to the next slide? And so we talked avoid, deny, defend. You want to go to the next one? So if you can, if it's feasible. So in schools, this might not always be the case. So leaving ASAP. So avoiding, as far as leaving goes, this could be at a shopping center, or if you're on your way into the school, uh, and you notice there's a problem and you don't have a way to help, leaving, getting away as quickly as you can is going to be best. Avoid, you're taking a target away, you're protecting lives. Now, in the middle of school day, leaving as soon as you can might not be feasible. It might not be the smartest thing to do to flood the hallways and present targets to the suspect, like what happened in some of the Nashville shooting during the fire drill. Some students, the students that did, and the teachers that did, the principal that did end up dying, they were out in the hallway because of fire drill and they're leaving their classrooms. Knowing your exits. So knowing where the best exits are, that doesn't necessarily always have to be a door either. It could be windows to a classroom. And do you have a staging area? Is there a way to find shelter once you leave through a window that gives you cover? And then only when it's safe and when you can safely do so, call 911. I know some schools are getting the button. I know Our Lady of Lourdes, I believe, has gotten the alert button that goes directly to dispatch, that any faculty member who has it can press it and it'll generate a police response. I know they are working through that. So that can assist in the call 911 portion. Go ahead, next slide. You want to play the video?
From the technology to notice it's on the chart that you have there, and it's part of the plan that we have, that the workshop we're going to have following this meeting, but this will be the first step in that whole process. I have a motion. A motion. Everybody in this room behind that counter hit the road. Please, certainly, everyone else leave. Hey, sir. John, just let him talk. He's talking. John, go ahead.
Okay, so I believe that's a school board meeting. It doesn't show it right away, but they're recording it. It's either a town council or school board meeting, I can't remember, but you start hearing that hissing sound, and that is him spraying that circle with a V in it over in the next to the far podium. And so avoid in this instance, doesn't, it might not always mean leaving so your classroom completely, but what it can mean is you gathering your students, gathering people into your classroom as soon as you notice that there's a danger, notice there's a threat. It can mean evacuating, it can mean running out of the school, but it's getting away from that threat when you first notice it. Normalcy bias is something that comes into play where our minds want to make whatever we're seeing be natural and normal for the day, like that video about the fire we saw. So that way we're creating this safe, happy mindset. To note, at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas school shooting, the suspect was known to the school, and faculty and staff had mentioned that if someone was going to do something at that school, it probably would have been him. He arrived on school in an Uber, was walking onto the property, onto the campus, carrying a duffel bag. And people had seen him, even though he was not a student there anymore, saying, "Why is this crazy kid here? What does he have to do here?" And they shrugged it off. They didn't call right away when he first showed up. They treated it as, he'd been here before. The point of this is they are missing the keys, the threats that are coming in that would help them to avoid and run away from that problem or call a lockdown. Karina, do you have anything on that?
No, I just think it's such an interesting example, though, of people kind of not responding right away. Like you were saying, you could see them kind of go through that normalcy bias where they weren't sure, should I run in this situation? Some tried to hide under the chair. And then the woman that tried to attack the guy with the gun and was unsuccessful. Just knowing that when you make a decision to do something, you got to be all in on it. But that was a school board meeting. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I want to go to the next slide. All right. So deny. So this is you're making yourself a hard target. You're making your room a hard target. You're making it unappetizing for someone that wants to cause you harm to go that way. A lot of these school shootings, they are looking for that rapid threat, or that rapid victim grab that they can get. Like she mentioned before at the Nashville shooting, the teachers had barricaded their doors. They had these systems where they basically put I believe it was like a metal bar that hooked into the door handle, so the door would not open, not without some breaching tools like a saw or explosives. So the suspect was able to shoot into the room but could not see. So denying them a target. So lock the doors, barricade the doors, lights off, and then out of sight, and then also quiet. That could be a hard one depending on the class you have and depending on the people inside. It's going to be a horrible, frightening experience. People are going to be crying. People might be screaming. It's going to be scary. Barricade the doors. If you have things you can place in front of the doors, not only is that going to make the door harder to open, but if the door does open, it's going to create a debris field for that suspect to try to wade through and get close to anyone. Denying them also sets it up so if they come in, you can defend yourself better. Maybe you can set up the barricades so they have a hard time getting through and they're looking at something else, and it gives you a way to better attack them if it comes to that. I want to go to the next slide. The video.
So she managed to rush 15 small children into a tiny bathroom to try to save their lives.
I put one of my students on top of the toilet dispenser. I just knew we had to get in there. I was just telling them it's going to be okay. You're going to be all right. I pulled a bookshelf before I closed the door in front of it. So it was we were completely barricaded in. I turned the lights off.
Did you tell them to be quiet? Did you worry about one of them?
No, I told them to be quiet. I told them we had to be absolutely quiet because I was just so afraid that if he did come in and then he would hear us and then he would maybe just start shooting the door. So I said, no, we just have to be absolutely quiet. And I said, there are bad guys out there now. We need to wait for the good guys. They're coming again. I wanted us to be okay. And I'm so saddened that there are people who in this situation are not okay. And my heart goes out to anyone who knew them and was a part of their lives. I just can't imagine.
Did they cry?
No, if they started crying, I would like take their face and say, it's gonna be okay. Show me your smile. Like I really tried to and one of my students was, would say like things like, I know karate, so it's okay. I'll lead the way out. Like,
they really said to you, we want to go home for Christmas.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or I just want to hug my mom, or just, things like that were just heartbreaking, and like in my mind, I mean, because you're hearing, I've never been a part of something obviously anywhere near this traumatic. And so I'm hearing the gunfire in the hallway and I'm thinking in my mind, I'm the first classroom. Why isn't he coming? I'm thinking we're next. And, and in my mind, I'm thinking, as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, what are your thoughts? What are your, and I'm thinking that I have to almost be their parent. Like I have to tell them, so I said to them, I need you to know that I love you all very much and that it's going to be okay, because I thought that was the last thing they were ever going to hear. I thought we were all going to die. And I don't know if that's okay, teachers and, but I wanted them to know someone loved them, and I wanted that to be one of the last things they heard. Not the gunfire in the hallway. It's just so horrible. Horrible.
How did you know you were going to be okay? What happened?
I didn't. What finally happened was the gunfire stopped. The gunfire wasn't that long, so that stopped. But I said, no, we're not going anywhere. We're staying here until someone good comes in. Gets us out. So eventually, what happened was the police came and started knocking, and obviously, I mean, I was completely beside myself, and I said, I don't believe you. You need to put your badges under the door. So they put their badges under the door. I said, if you're really a police officer, then you would have a way to get in here. You would have a key, or you would have gotten it from the janitor. If everything's okay now, you would have found the keys. So he had the keys, and he found the right one, and he unlocked the door, and then they brought us out to the firehouse to meet up with the rest of the teachers and students, waiting for parents to come and pick them up.
I think there are a lot of people who wish.
So yeah, that's a very heavy video, but she barricaded. She denied the suspect having targets, and this is something I try to cover whenever I meet with schools, talk to educators, staff, anyone. Is everyone at the school, you're the first responder for this. When we run our exercises, we run our tabletops, again, 5 minutes until the first officer arrives. And that's not 5 minutes until the bad guy stops. That's 5 minutes until a good guy gets there that can start working that problem. Everyone at that school is going to be working the problem well before an officer, well before a firefighter, well before anyone else is. So everyone, you all are the ones that are saving lives. You're the ones that are preventing death. You're preventing people from getting hurt by following the avoid, by practicing the deny, by barricading. So this teacher did really good. The vetting to make sure who's coming through, that's going to be expected, and it should be. I wouldn't take anyone's word for it, and I know a lot of the cops and law enforcement working here. I'd still make them show me their badge or do some type of identification to know who it is I'm talking to. All right, go ahead, next slide. So defend, I talked a little bit about positioning. So when I talk about defending, I always like to talk, my brother's a teacher. He was a teacher at a middle school in Yakima, probably 10 or so years ago. And they ran an active shooter drill without telling anyone. They did a surprise drill. And so they didn't tell the teachers. And so he got his class to one side. He grabbed a big pair of scissors that, teachers have in classrooms, and he's waiting by the door. Well, door opened, lights were off, and their SRO walked in without announcing herself. And he's standing there with his, scissors up, ready to go. So don't recommend active drills or drills like that. But he positioned himself close to the door so he could quickly get to the suspect if they came in. So that way he's not trying to cover ground or distance if they start shooting. Um, excuse me. You want to be in a spot so that way when they open the door, they might not see you right away. So if you can avoid that, and you don't want to stand directly in front of the threshold in case they start firing through. So you want to have some blockage from that. And again, barricading the door in front with a debris field might help. Grabbing the weapon, if you can, to force it offline so the barrel's not pointed at you or anyone else, and then not letting go of it because they're going to start fighting for it, but not letting go of that weapon so they can't use it against you. And then fighting the person. I would say anyone coming into a school that's going to hurt you like this, the fight doesn't stop until they are. There's no way for them to start moving again. So if there's multiple people, pig piling, everyone's grabbing onto an arm, everyone's grabbing onto a leg, holding them down. It's going to be a fight for your life in the lives of the children and other people in that school when it comes to this. You want to go to the next slide? So I believe the guy you just saw grabbed a wine bottle as a weapon to take with him.
Yeah, that's what that was an example of, just grabbing whatever you have available to you.
So yeah, look at the stuff inside your classroom. Look at what you can use. I personally do not advocate for the carrying of guns in school. It's dangerous. There's a lot that goes into firearms training and handling. But look at other things you might have. Look at your chairs. Look at if you are into sports or an athletics director or coach in anything. Do you have a baseball bat? Do you have any sport implement you can use? Again, my brother, he had scissors. He was ready to go. Fire extinguishers inside, even spraying them in the face with it to block their eyesight. And then it's a big bludgeoning tool. It's taking the attack to them when that's the last option and overwhelming that suspect with force, and everything else is going to be how you defend yourself. If you're more curious on the defense, I would seek out like personal defense classes or martial arts. I can't really go into other methods, but next one, Karina. All right, so I look at these things and it's a decision making tree, and this is how I think, and this is how I do a lot of my job. So just going through in your mind, like where you're at right now or on your day to day, this is a good practice exercise for how you start your day to get your mind ready for this. So that way decisions come easier. So if an attack starts, are you able to get to a primary exit and get away from the threat? Yes, then you avoid them. And then you keep following that and you're out. Okay. Then you go to, I don't have a primary exit next to me. Okay. Do you deny them? Can you deny them? Start barricading, start doing things, shut off the lights. Can you block the door with anything? And then are there other exits you can get to now? Are there windows? Are there emergency doors? Are there anything else? If yes, then you go back to avoid and you stay away from the threat. If there's no other exits and you've denied, now you're into the defend. So again, all of this situational awareness decision-making tree puts us into a void where we are never encountering the suspect. You're never face to face with them. They don't see you. You're never a target for them while they're doing their attack on your location. Go ahead. All right. So when we arrive, it's good. It might seem different than what you expect. So if you want to click over to the next one, I think, yeah. So we've trained this past year, and our driving, like our operational goals as we go in there, our intent is to stop the killing. So what we're doing when we go through the stop the killing, we have trained our officers to go to where there is active indicators. So active indicators are going to tell us where the suspect is. That could be people screaming, that could be gunshots, that could be following bullet casings, that could be going to the room that was reported last for our information of where the suspect was to look for him. What that means when we're in that phase of stop the killing is that we're going to be bypassing people that may be injured because we need to stop further people from getting hurt. So it's a hard thing, and it's something that we've had to train our officers out of is when we see someone injured or down through this, they want to stop and help them right away. And it's a really hard thing to walk past someone who's injured because you know that there's a threat still going on and you have to go after them so that way they don't hurt any more people. The next phase, once there's no more active indicators or we know that the suspect has been neutralized, we're going to go into the stop the dying phase. Our officers are all trained in it's like a TCCC, but not advanced trauma, but trauma care. So we can do things with tourniquets, we can do things with gauze, we have chest seals, and we're working quickly to secure an area so that way we can bring firefighters and medics into the scene to further stop that dying. And with that is evacuating the injured. So once we've secured it, we've stopped the dying, we get firefighters in as quickly as they can so they can start triaging. And we've been doing training with firefighters fairly regularly, so that is more seamless, that transition. And then we can evacuate injured to the hospital. And we have a number of hospitals that we can send injured people to in this area. And we have a number of ambulances that we're able to use for transport. Go ahead.
Are you ready? If you're not cool, I'm not walking them, dude. Sir? Go. Walk to that deputy right there. Keep your hands where I can see him. All the way to that deputy. You're going to make the left of the deputy's out. Thank you. Thank you. Try to relax. Everyone, try to relax. I'll take a bullet before you do. That's for damn sure. Just be cool, okay?
All right, so when we arrive, this is going to be more toward the phase where we start evacuating people. We're doing a search of the building. We're going to have specific directions, and we've been working through some ideas on how to do that. Much like the video you saw where the gal was asking for some bona fides from the officer before she opened the door. This is where ICS comes into play, where I think we can do a lot better, where police are coordinating with school officials on contacting whoever's in a certain room by phone, by intercom, by other means to have them evacuate a little bit better. So that way there's not a second shock when police arrive and we don't bust down a door that doesn't need to be busted down and come in with rifles and guns out and further scare anyone. So, we're going to try to do this in a calm manner. We're going to try to talk, hey, who's in charge? Who's inside? Okay, it's, Miss or Mr. All right, is there anyone inside who's not supposed to be here? Okay. Is anyone hurt inside? Go through that phase, and then we're going to say, hey, we're going to have everybody evacuate. Go ahead, line up. I want hands on the person in front of you, so that way everyone stays together. And then follow your teacher out. We're going to lead, and there will be a corridor, usually with officers, taking them to a staging location. Can you go to the next slide? So when we do, if you do see us, so this isn't during the avoid phase because people are going to be running out while we're looking for stuff. If you have information on where a suspect might be, let us know. But when we're doing that slow search or we go into a room, it says do not move. I think it's showing don't do rapid movements or quick movements, especially if you're in a dark room. Show your palms, so have your hands visible so we can see nothing's inside of them, and then follow police commands. And again, we're trying to make this when we're able this transition a lot calmer and easier. So that way we're working with school officials as we kind of secure uh, the school after an event like this happens. Go ahead next. All right. So what schools can do. Excuse me. So the standard response protocol, standard response method, I really like. I like how it's got all of us on the same sheet of music as far as what a hold is, what a secure is, what a lockdown is, evacuate and shelter. Uh, I know it because I'm a nerd for this stuff. I think it's hard for every officer to learn what these mean. So you might hear officers say, "Hey, go into lockdown." That's generic. Um, it's okay for you to ask the officer what do you mean by lockdown? Do you mean hold, secure? You might have to explain what each of those mean to them. Uh, but it's okay to ask that just because our lingo doesn't speak to everyone across the board right now. Go ahead. Training's a big one. Training, not just your like fire drills or active threat drills that you do. I don't know if you do them every month, every 2 months, but I think getting teachers trained on what their actions are supposed to be at the beginning of the year for this, so that way they're fully understood on how they're supposed to direct what they're supposed to do in these instances, than having a day where it's not typical. So, hey, this is what you should do. And I can't tell you what that is, but this is what you should do when you're in your class. This is what you should do when there's between classes. This is what you should do when there's lunchtime or a free period or, recess or nap time, depending on what school you have. So that way it builds those schemas. You're scripting already in people's heads. So that way they can come up with ideas, and the first time it happens isn't the real deal, and they've had a chance to think about it. And then do tabletops. So I think a tabletop's almost like a Dungeons and Dragon board game. Like, hey, we're gonna sit here and this is what you get to do and I get to do. But it's a decision-making game where they're working through a problem, vocalizing decisions, and maybe you have them moving, you have a big map up on a board of your school and like, hey, this is what I would do, different map pieces that show, hey, I barricade this door, lights are out now, and I'd stand right here if a suspect came in to defend if that's where it's at. The important thing from these tabletops is if people said they're going to do that thing, or they say, hey, I'm going to stand here, go look at that room where they said they're going to stand at, and is it feasible for them to stand there? We have maps and it shows square rooms with a door. Maybe there's a bunch of stuff right there that wouldn't allow someone to stand in a certain spot, or they wouldn't be able to barricade a door there, or the area they're calling their safe corner isn't actually safe because they're exposed to a window. And then your lockdown drills, following the lockdown drills, making sure everyone participates, making sure everyone pays close attention. My wife, she's a preschool teacher at Lourdes. I was talking to her about one of her drills they had for a fire drill, and they're managing little 3-year-olds, trying to get them out, and they like to follow rules, but then they also like to be 3-year-olds. So other teachers that are parapros or didn't have class had come over and helped them. And I think that's something important to realize. That's what these drills are for. What does each individual class need? What does each individual need to make sure that this drill goes seamless in the real world? Karina, do you have anything on that?
No, I think you did a great job of explaining and kind of talking through the importance of why we do training, tabletops and drills, and how that all works together to be better prepared.
Yeah, thanks. So again, I know there's discussion and talk about in other areas and other states about teachers carrying firearms in school. I'm not going to speak to that. One thing I will speak to, I think some training that would be great if we could implement in the school districts, is stop the bleed training. if we can get resources in the schools, equipment, tourniquets, chest seals, gauze, wound packing. I know it's horrible to say that this is what teachers should be trained in, but it does seem to be a more violent world now. And that's not even just for threats, but people hurt themselves in class. If there's a car crash, and you not only take this information with you to school, but on your everyday life. And further, it helps with that post trauma where afterwards you make it out physically, and then you have the mental anguish and you have everything afterwards. If you're able to look back on this and say, hey, I did something to help, and I wasn't just stuck in a victim, or you don't let yourself become victimized and you did something to help everybody else out, it's going to help at the end through that mental push to keep you out of depression, to keep you from harming yourself later on. Threat assessments. Teachers know the students better than anyone else. Faculty know students better than anyone else. They know the parents. They know what's going on better than police do. You're there with the kids day to day. In the workplace, you know your fellow workers better than anyone else. So you know when they're going through a rough time. You know when there's something odd going on about them. So if you think something's amiss, you think something's wrong, it's not like calling the sky is falling when you send up the chain to that threat assessment. I know ESD 112 has, or if you call 911 about something that you have concerns about. Just calling the police doesn't always initiate a huge trial or anything else, but it can get it on our radar to look into something, and it lets everyone know kind of what's going on, so that way we have an idea. Firearm safety. Yeah, I'm not sure how much to talk on that, but
That's more about keeping firearms locked if there are firearms at home. Just sort of that campaign. Not advocating for staff to carry firearms, but yeah, just that awareness.
yeah, I guess that is a good point. If you have firearms at home, especially if you have littles, or even if you don't, having them locked up so that way they're not easily accessible. So that way they can't get into the wrong hands, and also they can't. Not only is it prevent it from being used in a crime, but that way no one gets hurt playing around with it.
Yeah, and I'll follow up after today and share some of those resources that we have listed.
Okay. Next. All right. So key takeaways from today. We've talked about it, but avoid, deny, defend. Remember, avoid. You're just staying away from that threat. You're doing things to make sure they can't see you and they don't have a chance to hurt you. Denying is barricading, preventing them from getting into where you're going, making it a harder target, so that way they leave. And then defending is that last ditch effort where it's going to be a fight for your life and the lives of other people around you to stop them from harming you.
All right. Well, that is the content for the today. I just want to take you back to the very first video that we shot, the situation at the school. Holding that in mind and asking yourself, what would you do? And taking that question with you as you return to your, as you leave for the day, as you get to your school tomorrow. That's part of that building that script that we talked about and kind of practicing. ahead of time. Thank you so much, Sergeant Lagerquist, for joining us today and sharing your expertise and your training. It's such an important topic, and it's something that schools ask me about all the time. We recorded this webinar so that you can share this with your colleagues if you'd like to. I'll have it posted to our website.